Hello everyone, welcome back to another video, and today I'm going to be going through everything new with this update. So that's dinosaur stats, game changes, bug fixes, improvements. I'm going to be covering it all. If you are new here, make sure to like and subscribe because it helps me out an absolute ton. And yeah, make sure to watch till the end. Enjoy! Alright, so let's just get straight into this, starting off with this new quest indicator. So, when you start a quest or get into a location and a quest starts, it will show up with a little started quest thing. That's pretty new. We have also got a trample damage rework. So, trample damage has been completely redone and reworked. You might have noticed it if you're following or chasing something that's smaller than you. You might have noticed that you actually trample it a bit easier now. So, trample damage has been reworked for terrestrials to be more consistent across the board, so that's everything, as well as trample damage values have been adjusted to use locational damage. So, before, what happened is, if you got trampled, it's basically someone ran into your torso, and they were really big, and you wasn't, and it was really hard to actually do trample damage. However, they have changed that now, so, like, you can trample someone's tail now. That's a thing you can do. You can also trample critters, which I think that should have been added from the start because they're critters, they should be trampleable, but now you can actually trample them. Then, speaking of critters, we have critter improvements. So, they've improved the critter logic to prevent the land and aquatic critters confusing each other. They've also fixed aquatic-only critters tracking terrestrial players. They've improved critter responsiveness to faster, so critters should be more more keen-eyed to actually go for players now. It should be much easier for them. They've added the spawn rate curves for community servers, so any of you who own a server or are thinking of, you can now edit critters again. They've also improved the critter food amount, so you get more food from them, and they've fixed the flashing when critters spawn. Apparently there was flashing when critters were spawning. Also, this isn't in the script or in the patch notes, but they added this rock into Green Hills, which is why I'm here on my boosted speed patchy. They added this rock. No idea why, but there's a brand new rock. I have a theory it's for the moss quest, the blue moss quest, but who knows? I don't know. Next up, we have got audio improvements. So, they've also added distant calls to Sarco. I didn't mention that in my Sarco TLC review. I kind of didn't notice it, but I showed them off. Anyway, so yes, Sarco's got distant calls. They've also improved the audio levels of distant calls for things like Allosaurus. Apparently they were too quiet. And they've also fixed the aggressive and broadcast dinosaur call sounding too quiet when the game's master volume was reduced to about 50% or lower. So basically, if you had your game volume too low, you pretty much couldn't hear your own voice. Which is not good. That's not what we want. Next up, we have got general fixes. So, they've fixed varial mobile crashes. Apparently, mobile was struggling again. Looking at you, Apple, Samsung, Google. They've also improved the mud visuals, which I will show off later in the video when I cover one of the dinosaur stat changes. They've also made Styracosaurus's footsteps quieter, as well as Pycnos. They are also quieter. They've fixed falling through the map when leaving a home cave, so that's nice. They fixed desync with Spinosaurus' undertow being in the water. They've also fixed some instances on Android and iOS crashing due to running out of memory, because that's not good. They added solar-powered icons to Spinosaurus, so when you have solar-powered the hide activated, it will show up as like a little stats effect icon. They've fixed several ability descriptions, sped up Spinosaurus' item collection animation. We will have a look at that. And they've updated Clamp so it does not require stamina to drop targets, which I think should have been, again, here from the start, because that's awesome. Anyway, now that that's all out the way with, we can get on to dinosaur stat changes. Alright, so starting with Albertaceratops. This thing has got some interesting changes. So, when you use the when you use the hide off guard, you now get 7.5% damage resistance while using block, which is pretty cool. And then your voice quick vigor also increases the damage resistance by 7.5% while you're using block. That wasn't there before. They've added that, and I think it's pretty cool. Quick vigor also now lowers the cooldown of counterattack by 25%. That's the parry-ish attack, like where you block it automatically attacks. It's that one. They've also allowed block to be used while sprinting. It does slow you down, but look, you can block while sprinting. It does still use sprint stamina. It does slow you down, but I think that's a good trade. Like, that's awesome. They've also increased the block's cooldown from 2.5 seconds to 5 seconds, and added 60% knockback resistance to counterattack. So when you do counterattack, you gain 60% knockback resistance. That's a lot of knockback resistance, man. That's a lot. And for you Anodontosaurus lovers, those of you who heavily love this dinosaur, it has got a huge buff this update. So they've increased the health from 700 to 775, increased the combat weight from 4,000 to 4,500, increased Bone Snap's base damage to 105 instead of 95, increased Tail Slam's damage from 70 to 80. They've given Tail Slam a small knockback, so that is this one, yes, the green one. This one does knockback. They gave Tail Smash large knockback as well, so this also does knockback. They've decreased the Tail Smash cooldown from 12 seconds to 10, increased Swerve damage from 70 to 80, increased Swerve's fracture amount from 8 to 16, increased Tailspin's damage from 50 to 60, it keeps going. They've increased Tailspin's knockback from 8 to 16, and increased Tail Smash's base damage from 180 to 220. Why? Why did you think Anodontosaurus needed this much damage? Dude, this thing hits harder than Rex now, by a long shot. It's wild. And it nearly weighs as much as well. It weighs 1,000 under T-Rex, and has 25 less health. But it hits so hard. Ano might actually be a problem again. Alright, next up we have got Daspletosaurus. So, Dasp has actually got some pretty nice changes. First off, they've added 10% damage to, a 10% damage buff to Blunt Teeth if fractured or bone broken target is nearby. So, if we just hop into senses, Blunt Teeth, you deal more fracture, and Bone Snap the Charge Bite uses less stamina, and now, as I just said, you deal 10% more damage when you're near something that's fractured or bone broken, which I think is awesome, man. Dasp is finally getting something new. It's not a big change, but it's something new. They've also increased Bone Snap's base damage from 20 to 75. Oh my god, how much is that? A 55 damage buff, I think? I might be wrong on that. They've also decreased the stamina cost from 10 to 8. They've removed the Bone Snap speed debuff, so it no longer makes you slower. All of this is for the Charge Bite, by the way, this one. They've also increased Shatter's cooldown from 5 to 6 seconds, and decreased the Shatter stamina cost from 10 to 8. So Shatter uses less stamina, has a little bit more of a cooldown, but overall, I think that's a huge W for Dasp. It's got a lot of damage there now, oh my god. Alright, so next up we have got Deinocheirus, which has been hit with a bit of a heavy nerf, I won't lie. So, this thing's bleed heal rate has been lowered from 0.032 to 0.024. That basically means it bleeds a lot more now. It bleeds more. They've also... Oh, this is a good buff. They've increased Parch Scale speed buff from 5 to 10%. So that's this dry hide. This one. So you now move 10% faster on land. And now we get the nerfs. So, they've decreased the Claw's base damage, this attack, from 40 to 35. Oh my god, it does 35 damage. Oh my god. That's like Campto's bite. Sorry, no it's not. They've decreased Burly stamina recovery boost from 20% to 10%, decreased Parch Scale stamina recovery boost from 25% to 15%. They've decreased Light Feather's sprint stamina cost reduction from 25% to 15%. They've also increased Hemorrhage's claw base damage from 20 to 40. Now that sounds like it's good. And this next one also does, because they've increased the bleed from 0.3 to 0.5. And here's where it gets kicked. They've increased the claw cooldown for Hemorrhage Claw from 8 seconds to 16. 16 seconds for 40 damage and 0.5 bleed. May I remind you that Concavenator can do that basically every couple of seconds. Excuse me. Alderon, why? Why 16 seconds? That's insane! Like, we do not need 16 seconds for this claw attack. Like, Wow. Wowzers. I can't believe they've done that. And next up is Eotriceratops. Eotriceratops didn't get a lot. It got a few changes, such as Headstrong gains is at 2 times per hit by default now. They've also increased the Headstrong buff duration from 20 seconds to 30. They've decreased the Headstrong cooldown from 60 seconds to 45. And they've increased Head Slam's damage from 80 to 85. So, pretty soft buff, I'd say, for EO. More damage, gets its armor up quickly, lasts longer. Pretty good small buff, actually. And Hatzegopteryx, my boy, they have finally buffed it, but not in the way that you guys probably expect. So, they've increased the max hunger and thirst to 550, both are at 400, so you shouldn't need to eat as much. And they've also decreased the depletion rate of the hunger and thirst from 0.28 to 0.25. So again, it's technically a buff. It is technically a buff. It doesn't really do much for its fighting. It just means you won't need to eat or drink as much. So it's technically a buff, okay? We're gonna take what we can get with Hatzegopteryx. It's been through the struggles. This poor bird, man. Poor bird. And something that got more than just a slight buff, Iguanodon. So, Iguanodon has got the following. It has now got a generic slot, it now has a second passive slot, and they've moved planted feet to the passive slot. So you have no knockback while bipedal. If you're bipedal, you're immune to knockback, basically. They've also allowed block to be used while sprinting. It does slow you down, but look at this. You can I'm sprinting right now. It slows you down a lot. It's basically trot speed, but you can use it while sprinting. They've also updated the trample feat to be usable while solo. So where was that? I have no idea where trample feat was. Iguanodon's got such a weird thing. Oh, there it is. This now works solo. They've also added 20 fracture to the arm slam. I'm pretty sure they were supposed to do that last update, but forgot. Also, Thumb Barrage is now in the passive, so you don't even need to equip Thumb Barrage anymore. You can straight up just have it forever. Which is pretty cool, actually. I like that. So, Iguanodon, bit of a buff. And the Lambeosaurus. This thing has been hit with a nerf. So, they've decreased the base health from 575 to 525. Which puts it at less than Sarco now, I think. They've also increased the call to arms cooldown from 150 seconds to 300. They've increased rallying horn cooldown from 150 seconds to 180. Increased blaring cry stamina cost from 10 to 15, and increased the cooldown of blaring cry from 150 to 180. So you can't spam your voice calls as much, and it costs a bit more stamina to do one of them. And it has less health in general. Oh my god, poor Lambeo, man. They've tarnished a little bit of Lambeo's usefulness. And here we are with Miragaia. So, Miragaia has now got Muddy Scales to be used in combat. So you can now use Muddy Scales in combat. That is this ability, which lets you put on mud. They've also increased the Cake Tom buff from 18 times to 24 times, which I think that's when you're wet. Hold on, where actually is that? So yeah, when you're wet, it now lasts 24 times longer instead of 18 times, and they made it so you get 15% increased stamina recovery if you're covered in mud. They've decreased the paralysis effectiveness by 50%, so 50% less slow and longer cooldowns, and they've increased paralysis immunity from 10 seconds to 30. But, I said this at the start, mud got a slight retexturing, and I do want to show that off for you guys. So, look at this. It actually looks like I'm covered in mud, which I think is fantastic. They've done a great job at the retexture of mud. I'm probably spending far too much time on the mud retexture, but I think it's cool. I think it's cool. And here we are with Sarco. So, for those of you who didn't watch the TLC video, go watch that. But for those of you who don't want to, I'll just read out the new changes with Sarcosuchus in here, just because. So they've replaced the speed sub, the swim speed sub, with plus 20% swim stamina, so you get to swim for a bit longer now instead of faster. They've made it so you take less fall damage when you're smaller, by about 500 fall death speed, basically a little bit. They've also increased the asphyxiating snaps base damage from 20 to 40. They've increased the stamina drain it has from 20... Oh, sorry, they decreased the stamina drain from 20% to 15%. Increased the oxygen drain from 20% to 35%. They've improved the swim turn rate by 20%. Decreased health recovery from 1.5 to 1.25. Decreased swim stamina cost from 0.8 to 0.6. Decreased the max health from 650 to 575. They've decreased the bleed heal rate from 0.032 to 0.024, decreased the base bite damage from 60 to 50, increased sprint stamina cost on land from 2.2 to 2.5. They've added swerve, muddy scales, mudslide, dreadful presence, strong lungs, strong jaws, rugged scales, patient look, and biding time, caked on, and brace legs. And they've removed drench blows, streamlined, and resilient scales. Just thought I'd put all of that out there in case some of you guys didn't watch that video. And next up we have got Spino, which has had some pretty interesting changes. So, they have decreased the health from 975 to 950. They've decreased undertow stamina cost from 8 to 4. Increased the undertow ground knockback force from 200 to 1,000. Excuse me? 1,000? So it does 5 times the knockback now. They've increased the undertow pull force when you're underwater from 700 to 900. They've decreased the claw slam knockback force from 150 to 50. Decreased claw slam's cooldown from 25 to 15 seconds. Removed stamina cost of sweep, so you don't have to use stamina to swing your tail anymore on land. Removed stamina cost of snapjaw. Decreased lunging snap stamina cost from 9 to 8. Increased claw slap damage from 35 to 40. Decreased drenched strike stamina cost from 5 to 4. Increased dazing bellows duration from 60 seconds to 120. And the swim cost sub now affects diving costs. They've also adjusted sweep's cooldown on land to be 7 seconds and 15 seconds in the water. And as a little bonus, now that that critter's buggered off, they've increased the collection speed. So, Spino, you can see it's kind of quicker. You can collect stuff a little quicker. It should be nicer to grow, at least for newer players who don't want to spend forever collecting like 25 flowers, 25 mushrooms. Man, Struthiomimus has had a little bit of a rework with how some of its one of its attacks works. So, Kick Barrage, it now works like Iguanodon's. So rather than you kick and it stacks in damage, it kicks and basically it increases in power with each hit, basically. So yeah, it does a little triple kick now rather than just stacking, which I think is pretty cool. Dust Off is now usable in combat. They've increased the Dust Off radius from 15 to 20 meters, increased Safeguards radius from 15 to 30 meters, increased Tantrums radius again from 15 to 30 meters, and increased Swift Tempo's radius again from 15 to 30 meters. So, a small... Oh god, that critter scared me. But a small buff to Struthiomimus and Tyrannotitan. This poor bugger cannot catch a break. Alderon, they released this thing, it was amazing, way too good, and they just keep bringing it down. So, they've decreased the base bite damage from 50 to 45, decreased heavy bites base damage from 130 to 100, decreased the stamina cost, though, on heavy bite from 20 to 15, decreased frenzy tears base damage from 25 to 20, increased nimble feet's cooldown buff from 25% to 33%, so that's actually a bonus. Decreased feast stamina gain from 2 to 0.75, so you get a lot less stamina now. Increased Juke's cooldown from 8 to 15. 15 on Juke. Where is Juke? There we go. Let's just have a look at that. So you can only Juke every 15 seconds. Oh my god. And it does have a hide which... Yeah, so this hide makes it 33% faster, so I believe it goes from 15 to 10 seconds. I think that's how that works. Yeah, 15 to 10 seconds. So that might actually be required now to use. Uh-oh, poor Titan, man. Poor Tyrannotitan. And here we are in the character menu, because there are 2 things I missed out during this entire video, and that's mainly because they had like 1 or 2 changes I just couldn't bother to show in-game. such as Pycno has had its base run speed lowered from 1100 to 1075, so Pycno runs slower. And Latin. Latin has had its run speed increased from 1050 to 1075, and its Moonlight Hunter speed buff has been decreased from 10% to 7.5%. So Latin got a bit more speed, but less speed boost ability. Which, you know, I think that's a fair trade-off, to be honest. 10% was quite a lot for how fast Latin was. Anyway, that is probably going to wrap this video up. I really hope you enjoyed. Thank you to watching to the end if you did. It means an absolute ton to me. And yeah, there are some very questionable changes in this update, I won't lie, but I'm pretty happy that we got Sarcosuchus TLC. Anyway, leave a comment down below on what you think of this update, and have a wonderful day, everyone. Make sure to like and subscribe as well. Again, helps me out. Anyway, yes, have a wonderful day, take care, and goodbye.